Welcome back to another conversation we're having about, what's going on with our clients and what we're seeing. And today I think we've really been talking a lot about how our clients right now are dealing with the subject that always comes up in the fall, often comes up in the spring, around getting people together in person and having a really quality experience and having really potent, tangible outcomes come out of that.
Mm.
And we did another recording before about kind of turning an old model to a new model and another way of looking at this. But I was just talking to David before this and offering kind of an idea around ways our clients could look at this. And I just wanted to pose this. And maybe you, even if you're listening, want to take a second and try this and just
Mhm.
see if, as I say it, you can see it for yourself. I'm thinking about the idea that if you were planning, you're the leader, and you're planning this offsite for your team, and you know what you want from it, but as you think about it, you have this sense that you can create a vision for what it's going to look like. In the room, things are going to be very successful with people working individually, with people knowing where they can put their work time that they're missing, with people feeling really stabilized, really supported. And your vision and your real outcomes are front and center the whole time. And sort of the vision for how you would like people to be working in 6 to 12 months is front of mind on the table and really the centerpiece of everything that's happening, and that you know that in follow up, how would it feel if you knew that in follow up, you would be able to follow through each of these pieces and execute each of these elements month by month with pulse checks and micro coaching and seeing how people are doing and really understanding the whole. And when you got back to that offsite space a year later, everyone on the team would say, we did more than we thought we would do. We really accomplished what we set out to do. We steadily knew what was going on. We really understood what was happening and we pivoted when we needed to. And we had all the support we needed.
Yeah.
All of that plus that vision would not add extra stress or time or exertion or chaos to your plate as a leader. I don't know that any leader I've worked with holds that way of looking at these things or really has even ever had the luxury of experiencing it. So
No.
even just for a second, what would that look like for you? And and
Yeah.
and I guess on another level, do you believe it's possible? you know,
Yeah.
in
I tell
fairness.
you what. I tell you what's come up for me when you were sharing that vision exercise, Courtney. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to speak for 30 minutes with a guy called Harrison Owen, who's been a huge influence on my work. He's since passed on. And I was very aware that this was going to be the conversation. And it got to the last 5 minutes. His wife, bless her, was in the kitchen saying, Harrison, we're going to lunch. And he planned to take her out. And so I knew it was the final few minutes of this conversation. And I said, Harrison, just in case we never speak together again, what would you leave me with? What would be your final words of wisdom? And he said, David, we've all been working way too hard.
Right.
And he didn't mean some things you need to really push and strive for and whatever, and great visions need great work or whatever. He just said that the way we've set things up create a lot of effort and exertion and stress, and it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
Maybe from
Yeah.
the transition from the Industrial Revolution into the early office, we carried over that sense of it's going to be hot and it's going to be hard, and therefore we must be working hard, and that's good. But if we don't reimagine that outcome, that vision, then we're going to end up always getting to the end of the week, a year, exhausted and stressed. So how can, going back to Courtney's vision statement, a vision exercise here, what if we could design how people create work together such that a lot of that exertion was gone and more of that sense of ease and gracefulness and, wow, look at us, we really did achieve more than we thought we could.
Yeah. And I feel like we offer that idea or window a lot when we do the work with people. Like anytime we're brought into a room, I feel like each of us has our own version of saying something to that effect to people. And I always hear people say they feel soothed by that, but the actual action behind it and the plan behind it when you're just saying it in the room spontaneously because you're working on helping people in the moment, it's much more difficult to guarantee than it
Yes.
is if you go into the entire experience with that being the point.
Yes.
And so I think what we're offering is maybe we take away the word offsite and we say this is day one. Maybe we
Yes.
take away the escape from work and we say you're going into a new way of working and it's going to feel good. Maybe
Yes.
we focus on reporting the good news every month with a thermometer of some kind, but we don't work on as much focus on what's not going well. I
Yes.
just think I think a lot of what we're doing wrong is front loading these offsites with very high expectation,
Hmm.
with a lot of logistics, with really, really content heavy transactional presentations, and
Mm.
we're not really giving people, and then we're calling it a retreat.
Yes.
So,
That's right.
we're really creating a misnomer. And I think even though we seem to be painting a picture, I would imagine it sounds like we're painting a picture that feels like utopic, but not really feasible. I
Mm.
really think we're in a transition in work where there are two high priorities. One
Yes.
is people are going to keep learning a lot more about AI because it's just getting integrated everywhere. But on
Yeah.
the other more important side that we focus on, I mean, I would say more important to us side, being more human, being better communicators, putting that front and center in a strategy, and really relating all business goals on a team, big vision from the leader, integrating a new leader, integrating new staff, integrating teams that were separated or different or from an acquisition. All of these things fit into
Hmm.
the container of being more human together, being more
Yes.
connected together, having a very clear plan of action that everyone knows about. I've just
Mm.
been speaking with some clients recently who are going through, they knew they were going into a sea change, and by circumstance, several additional emergencies happened in the last couple of months. And I think a lot of them are coming through it kind of shaken because, to the point we're making, they have never really had this anchoring change strategy that says, you're going to know what's happening. You're going to know
Mm.
what's next. You're going to know the next update when it's coming. You're going to
Mm.
know what's 3 months from now. And what I
Yes.
think we're offering is, you know, there are a lot of different labels we can put on these things: offsite, change management strategy, integration. But really, when it gets down to it, people want to be with people. People want to do great work. People want to
Yes.
elevate themselves at work and they want to be working well with other people. And all of
Yes.
that feels really, really good. But guess what? It's also really effective.
Yeah. That's
It's
right. Yeah. Yeah.
also
Yeah.
really impactful. It also saves a lot of money.
Yes.
So I think what we're offering is we have structure in mind that pulls from the right budgets, that saves capital, that
Mm.
works with what you've already had, meets you where you already are. I don't think we're talking about a full reinvention of the wheel as much as we're talking about being more precise and a
Yes.
mindset shift.
Yeah. Beautifully said. And working with what works. You know, those things that you listed there about the highest potential of human beings, you know, work, they want to work towards purpose. They want to work towards great work. They want to work well with people. We know what it's like when they don't well with people. We hear about that all day, every day. But they want to create great places to work together. And so, you know, this is not some sort of answer that a couple of consultants are promising you here, because we're not the people who are going to tell you how to do this. Let's say the 100 people you've got in mind for your offsite, they're the ones who are going to create how we can create together a new way of working together, which is that much more stressful and urgent and exhausting, and is a lot more graceful and smooth based on some of the things that we know work, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing that came up for me as you were just speaking was, life at work these days is a choose your own adventure. It just
Yeah.
is. So,
Yeah.
um, we're not going to change the world here. And that's not the plan. That's not the idea. That's not the request. We're not asking you to break what you already know. And also, I think putting autonomy, mastery, purpose, people feeling seen, heard, and valued, people really genuinely connecting, people feeling like they know themselves individually and know others interpersonally and can really work as a team instead of a collection of individual leaders, inevitably leads to organizational change in a positive way.
Mhm.
Inevitably. And all we're offering is another way to look at the framework. We're
Yes.
literally saying you could have a different scaffold. And if you
Yes.
had a different scaffold, guess what? You could save this budget. I mean, think about it. When you remodel a house, you listen to the architect. When you take off a roof, you listen to the person who's saying you have mold and you need this other change. There's
Hmm.
always a pivot in almost everything that we do, and the expert has the plan. And so I'm not sure why our clients, I mean, it's just the way things have been. They've felt so pressured to be extraordinary leaders with no
Hmm.
expertise or training and to
Hmm.
be planners of these kinds of things just because they're in that position to bring people together. But
Yes.
they have no reason to have the expertise to understand the best possible framework. I
No.
think what we're saying is we are design thinking related people. We are
Hmm.
experts in human behavior. We are experts in communication. So let us take that off your shoulders. And by the way, you don't need more money to do it. You just
No.
have to look at it differently. And
Yes.
you have to let us in early to go over these things with you so that you can have more clarity about how it's played out. And
Yes.
by the way, you probably need to plan more than a month in advance. Just saying. If you
You do.
didn't, we can help bail you out, no problem.
Yeah.
But I think often it's just a lot of those things that add up to an enormous amount of stress. And I would imagine every leader goes into these offsites feeling like, well, I hope this is really utopic for everybody. And also, on the other side of it, there's so much to be done.
Yes.
And wouldn't it be nice if they went into it saying, "Thank God we're doing it this way for the second,
Yes.
third, fourth, 10th year, because look at what we did last year, and we are
Yes.
so much farther ahead. And I know I'm going to be so held and supported in this process that
Yes.
I can do my work to an exceptional level of quality."
Yeah. 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 Because let's talk a couple about those. You talked about support there, and we have some ideas about how we can keep people to the new way of working, a different way of working that they created and they want to own. But we also know that they'll go back to an organization which is infused with older ways of working, different ways of working that will pull them back. And so it does need support to keep people sort of honest to their intentions. And we've got some ideas about some sort of objective things, some things that you can put in the calendar, which we know work in terms of enhancing momentum, keeping momentum up. And then there's sort of some more of the interpersonal support that people need in order to keep going, keeping true, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Right, right. So one thing I was thinking about this morning as we were working on this a little bit was, you kind of need this outsider inside who's the guardian of the 12-month vision that
Hmm.
says, I'm going to make sure while you continue to do your day job leader that these things are getting followed through on. And if they aren't, I'm going to come and talk to you and we're going to find a way to change whatever needs to be changed to pivot. But you don't necessarily have to be the change agent all the time, first of all. Also, I think if we are working on, kind of these one-time vision and strategy plans before the offsite or the day one or whatever you want to call it happens,
Mm.
then the goal is to meet that vision by the next time they get together. If that's six
Yes.
months from then, if it's 12 months from then, um, how can you meet and exceed that goal, not just hope they had a good time and they remember something? Our
Yes.
expectations have been really low, really, really low. And I find
Yes.
it really interesting how much we're investing in moving people all over the country or to different countries and having this block of time that then we expect them to sort of like imprint on their brain and take back and export to other people they work with, but we don't
Yeah.
really give them any framework to do so.
No, that's right.
And
We can
it's a
certainly give
it's
them.
an unreasonable expectation, honestly. And it's
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
nobody has negatively placed that. It's just the way things have been.
The way things have been. Yeah. And I know that, I'm sure listeners can sit down and think about the last major offsite, maybe from sometime in 2025 that they did. You'll probably, if you sit long enough, you'll be able to remember certain moments in that. But you may not be able to say, as we are trying to say, is you might not be able to name moments that occurred during that offsite that have taken you to where you are today, or where the team is today, or where the strategy is today. So again, it's connecting this sort of container for the offsite into the what's going to come out of it, and how can you keep people um, motivated and engaged on that path as they move through it. You know, from through the excitement of launching this different way of working towards the output, through the messy middle, which we all know about, and the messy middle is not as much fun as either end, and then into the promised land where we're actually achieving things. You know, and one of the things that we've been talking about is you know, we're used to going to offsites and our clients get lots of swag. They get a t-shirt or they get a baseball cap or they get the good old water bottle. How many water bottles, dear listener, do you own that have come from various offsites you've been to over the years? What if we could replace these, and this is something Courtney is very passionate and experienced in, thoughtful gifts throughout the year that keep people not just from the place of, oh, they're thinking about me, but that reconnects me to the purpose. It reconnects me to the vision.
Yes.
That
Yes.
inspires me. It doesn't just like, oh, thank you. You know.
Yes. Yes. And what you're saying is really important because I think one thing, when we talk about this, I think we're sounding, I mean, if I'm listening from the listener's perspective a little bit, I'm thinking like, are we sounding kind of abstract on certain things? But some of the things are so specifically tangible, like what you
Yes.
just said. You know,
Yes.
trade a piece of swag with a logo on it for a couple of gifts thoughtfully placed throughout the year that connect to the vision and strategy and drive the purpose forward.
Mm.
Trade a nice, well catered meal that's whatever the venue offers for really considering people's dietary needs going in and asking them thoughtful questions and thinking about how they're going to feel their best and making sure that those things are available and
Mm.
make sure to make room for the time that they need to feel like they're getting some things done or they're having reflection or they're getting a walk or they're being a human instead of feeling like they are on a 8 to 5 and then dinner at 5:30 kind of schedule that feels unmanageable and feels like they're going to go back just exhausted.
Yes.
I think there's a way for this to be very replenishing and ongoing. There's a way to bring things like the training and the learning and development that may feel like a very separate subject and connect it to this and connect it to the milestones and the outputs and the things. I mean, there's a way to make a lot of things in the business more tangible and high return on investment while also being very, very human.
Yes. Exactly right.
All within the budget you're already using,
That's right.
realistically. And I know that
Yeah.
sounds crazy, but the more I've looked at it, the more realistic it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And being the outsiders inside, you know, we have that time and space to be able to stop and think about where the investment is going, as opposed to quick get 30 water containers with the logo on. You know, we got to stop
Right.
and think what would make the best difference here, given what everybody is up to here, which is manifesting this 12-month vision. Yeah.
Right. Right. And I mean, I've seen many businesses I've worked with too go through the thing where, they on with their best intentions put together a series of meetings or offsites or time for their people to get together, and it's potent and it's useful and it has a really positive high to it. And then somewhere down the road, the business says you spent too much, and by the way, I'm going to slice a position, or I'm
Yeah.
going to. I mean, really severe outcomes can come out of
Yeah.
misusing this, and yet the person in question could be like, all I did was what everybody's always done, and I think I still did it better. I still was careful and conscientious, and they were. That's
Hmm.
legitimately true. Um, but I think the outsider perspective of looking at this holistically in a different way and
Yes.
looking at it as getting you going on a year's worth of work, being somebody who helps you hold this strategy and this thread consistently and checks on the pulses and gives assessments on trust and makes sure that people are really engaged
Yes.
and also really recognizes each individual within that experience is a very different thing than what the system has offered us. A
Yes.
very different thing than anything we have been sort of brought in to execute historically.
Yes.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think even I don't know how you feel, David, but even I, when we were first talking about this, was like, could we do this?
Yeah.
And mostly because it's never the way I've been invited. But the more
No.
we've talked about it, the more it's like, this is very, very possible, probable,
Yes.
successful, easy, actually,
Yes.
if it's approached correctly.
Yes.
So I don't know. I'm very enthusiastic about this being a real wave of the future. And I don't think other people are doing it this way.
I don't. And we said, I think in the earlier conversation, we don't think there's actually a term for what we are offering here because it's not quite consulting. It's not, certainly not event management. It's not this, it's not that. But it is this idea of, given you're already going to do an offsite, let's raise you immediately to the highest possible outcome
Yeah.
and put you out in the future and then trace everything back, and then be able to track what's working after you leave the offsite, 2 or 3 days, whatever it is, after you leave. We'll help you keep checking in, find out what's working, what needs to change, what seemed like a good idea back in November or in March, but now that we're 6 months in towards the vision, it's not working anymore. How can we adapt it and change it and improve it? Yeah, all of these are these little tools that keep people on the path, and as well give them that human sense that they need, which is they're being supported in their best intentions.
Yeah. And even though it's kind of without container a little bit right now, I think it's interesting that honestly it pulls the threads of lots of things that always go on, but
Yes,
aren't necessarily intimately checked on. So,
yes,
overall team strategy, connection of team strategy to organizational strategy, checking on each of the individual people on the team, even if they're not being coached,
mm,
checking on how the leader's doing and what the leader
mm,
needs to hold, being more thoughtful. And I mean, I get people all the time asking me, what am I going to get so and so for their birthday?
yes,
Because we have the intimate conversations.
yes,
We understand, and we don't share those verbatim, but we do have the sort of like sense of the nervous system of the whole thing. Because
yes,
so we have
exactly.
a different view of being able to look at, and so holding space for that, holding space for one person at a time within this. Who's
Mm,
suffering? Who's
mm,
elevating? Who's like
mm,
really spotting important things along the
mm,
way during this? So for me, my mind keeps going back to this being like day one of
yes,
365. This is
yes.
the first day of the rest of your year.
I think it's great.
Consider your offsite the first day of the rest of your year. And if you every
Yes,
year have it around the same time, which many businesses do, um, how good would it feel to go into that next one knowing you
yes,
did everything you set out to do and way, way more, and that you can
yes,
be even more ambitious next time because you know
yeah,
exactly how you're going to be held. So it's like,
yeah.
it's interesting because it's without term, but it also holds so many different things.
Mm,
Internal PR, like
yes,
I could go on. Gifting, I could go on
yes,
and on. So, and the idea is, and I imagine as we work with people on this, as it grows, it's going to evolve too. I bet we're going to see things we're not even thinking about right now as we get
of
into
course.
individual teams and start to see the case studies. So I think one thing we can promise is as we continue working on this with teams, which we're already beginning to do, we
Hmm.
can produce some neutralized case studies that give you an idea of how this works and
Yes,
say, hey, we're not going to share confidential information, but we can definitely give you kind of some mocked up Acme Co
yeah,
level studies that blend experiences so that you can see an example because
yes,
it's very tangible. That's what I love the most
yes,
about this is it's very human, but it's
yes,
very high return on investment, extraordinarily high
yes,
return on investment.
yes. And that's the most important thing. You
Right.
know, we
Well, and we
we
talked about this in another conversation. We were talking about there's return on investment and then there's return on trust.
mm,
And in both cases, we're hitting it here. And if
mm,
you don't have return on trust, this is like the fun little
yeah,
part of this acronym. If you don't
yeah.
have return on trust, you have rot. There's my
Yeah,
soapbox
beautifully
for the
said.
day. So don't have rot.
Yeah.
So David, if we're bringing this full circle, and we had the other conversation, and I encourage you, if you're listening to this and haven't listened to the other part of this conversation, please make sure you listen to both because they together hold kind of how this can work. And I know we want to, speak to people, anybody who'd like to, about how this might work for them. But what would you say to kind of wrap this topic up and kind of bring us to a full circle thinking on this particular part of the subject?
Well, yeah, I would. I'd just like to make an invitation to anybody who's been at least a little inspired by this conversation, the possibility of achieving great things and it not feeling like a heck of a lot of work. And I know that's a big promise, but if you have enough faith in what you heard here to get on a call with us, no obligation call, just to work through what you have in mind and how we might begin to ask you to think differently about that thing. And the promise is whether or not you would then end up working with us is that you will feel better at the end of that conversation than you do at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And that is a reflection of if your 100 leaders going to this offsite feel better at the end of the offsite about the future, then they're going to work harder and better and more effectively in the future. So, our promise to you is get on a call with us. Let's share some of these ideas. Let's think it through with you. You will feel better. You will feel energized, even if you don't end up working with us. And
Yeah.
that's a reflection of the whole thing. If human beings feel better, they can get a lot more done, and it feels great.
Agreed. And I think that another thing I would add to that I think you said, but I just kind of want to accentuate is, honestly, even if the conversation just generates ideas for you and you take away
Yes,
those ideas and you do a few things differently yourself,
yes.
that will be more than enough. I'm going to guarantee you're going to feel compelled to want somebody else to do it because it's, whether or not that's a feasible is a different question, but I think it just, if you can take your couple of ideas and that would magnify the experience, can you imagine if it was magnified 100, 200, 300 more times?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if there was an eagle eye on making sure that not only people had a very satisfying experience in the room, which you always look for, but they knew for a fact that there was going to be no ball dropped.
yeah,
They knew for a fact, you knew for a fact as a leader,
yeah,
that this wasn't going to fall apart because there's a whole strategy behind it. And
yeah,
it's our job to make sure you don't put it down, but also it doesn't drain and strain your time and experience. Because inevitably, you're going away from this offsite and you're going to have some kind of emergency that's going to
yes,
come across your plate. And it's going to require you not to put all your attention on this. We don't have that
yes.
problem.
No,
The reason
that's
we're,
right.
I mean, we'll listen to you in that and we'll help you with that, but, and we'll pivot the strategy around that with you if you need.
Yes,
But I think it's just different. I mean, I hope people leave this conversation feeling like there's an opportunity to really be taken care of in this
yes,
and also really shine in their leadership, really
yes,
let the leadership beneath them shine. And realistically,
yes,
this much structure will get exported layers down.
yes.
The
Exactly right.
people that are experiencing this structure will definitely start offering similar implementation to their teams, and it's
Hmm.
encouraged.
That's right.
So, I mean, the
Beautiful.
impact is a multiplier.
Yeah,
Okay. I
terrific.
think we probably stood on the soapbox long enough.
Thank you,
All
Courtney. It's been
right.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Bye
See
bye.
you next time.